All right, so now we're talking about two other operations on strings that are known as indexing and slicing. Remember, by definition, strings are nothing but a sequence of characters, and every character has a value and it has a position. The way Python allocates positions, it starts counting from 0. That means H is at position 0, E is at position 1, L is at position 2, and then 3 and 4 and so on. So we're counting from 0 up to whatever number of characters we have, including spaces. So indexing is a way of accessing those elements. For example, here we are doing print s and then square bracket 0. This is how we index. And so this print statement should output an H. Similarly, this S4 is accessing the fourth element, counting from 0. So that means H is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this statement should output O because O is at position 4 because it's the fifth element. Similarly, slicing is a way of getting a substring out of a string. And the way the slicing operator works is that you give the starting point and then the colon and then the end point. For instance, here we are saying start from position 1, and this is, by the way, index 1, which means go and start from E and go up to the fifth element. So the fifth element here is space, right? But the way the slicing operator is going to work is that it's going to stop one element before 5. That means it's always going to stop 1 before the fifth element. Now there are other variations of the slicing operator. For example, you'll have two colons. This one, for example, means go and start from the first element. And if you haven't specified anything as the like after the first colon, that means go up to the end. You don't have to specify how many characters are there. And this is the last number here is step. So let me write down it like in a more generic way. The way the slicing operator will work is that it will take the start and then colon stop. But remember, stop one less than stop. So it's always going to stop one less and then step. Now, in cases when I don't provide this step, the default step is 1. That means go to every character. But if I'm providing a step, that means here, so this is saying step by 2, right? So like skip one character. Let me just run this and show you what this results. Now let's go back. This is the element at position 0, right? This is the element at position 4. And this is getting the substring ELLO because the space was the fifth character, and so it just stopped there. And notice what this one is getting us. This is like really interesting. This one at line number 7 is starting from 0, which is like the first position, and go all the way up to the end because I haven't specified where. And so it goes up to the end, but it's taking step sizes of 2. That means it began with H, and then it skipped this E, and then it picked this L, and then it skipped the second L, and then picked O, and so on. So these are two important operators in when we are working with strings. If you don't specify the starting point, it is going to take the default as 0, but you can specify anything you would like. Similarly, if you don't specify the step size, it's going to take the default as 1. That means take every element. The second thing that we were talking about is functions, and we have looked at like one function before, which was like len, where we were getting the length of the strings. But now we are moving towards different types of functions, which are known as string methods. Now, these are important because methods apply to certain types only. And I think it's true for functions as well because len applies to strings and not to numbers. And in fact, there are other functions for numbers. So for example, ABS returns an absolute value of something. For example, if you have like a -5, it's going to return the absolute value of -5, which is 5. And this is a numeric function, right? And there are more, so we can explore those. For example, there is another one that's known as POW. That means we calculate the power of 5 to the 2. So this is like 5 square or 5 cube or 5 to the 4 and so on, right? So there are other numeric functions. Similar to that, there are string functions. Those are known as methods. And the way this works is that let's say you created a variable b equals, let's say, good morning. And the way these methods work is that we'll have something like b dot, and then you'll write the name of the method. The method is specific to that type that we have created. For example, the type of b is a string, so we can only use string methods. The very first string method that we're going to look at is dot lower, and its functionality is that it's going to change everything to lowercase. Let's assume that this is the case here. And let me just remove all of this so that we can check the output of all these functions that we haven't yet, right? So look at the first one. The absolute value was -5, so that's 5, and then 625. And notice what happened here. Dot lower converted everything to lowercase. Similar to that, there is something that's known as dot upper, and that converts everything to uppercase. So let's quickly check what it's returning. Yeah, and I think we don't need these as well, so let me just get rid of that. There is another method that's known as capitalize. So capitalize is just going to capitalize the very first letter, and this is lowercase. Capitalize. Let's run this. So this is going to return only G is capitalized, right? Similarly, there is something that's known as dot title, and all these are like dot methods, just like notice, and they work only on string, on a string type, right? Not on numbers. It doesn't really make sense if you're using it for numbers. So dot title just converts every single value to an uppercase, like every word in that string to an uppercase. Another important method is dot replace, because we might want to update our string, right? So let's say I want to replace every O in the string B with something else, right? So let me try doing that. I can do print b dot replace, and the way dot replace works is, what do you want to replace, and what do you like, what exactly is the thing that you want to replace? For example, I want to replace O, and with what? So let's say I want to replace O with an X, right? Let's go ahead and run this. So as you can see, all the O's were replaced by X. This is quite helpful when we're doing like some string manipulation type of things. That's when it helps. Or sometimes when we are trying to replace this by nothing, right? So we are just like getting rid of that element. So as you can see, we got rid of that. So that's dot replace. There is another function called dot find that helps us find elements. For example, I'm saying go and find dot find, go and find this O, right? And you can just like specify one argument here. It's going to find the index of O. So let's actually run that. The index of O and the first occurrence, because there are multiple O's here. So the first occurrence is 1, obviously. But you can specify where do you want to start looking. So let's say I want to start looking from index 2, right? So I want to skip the first O and like go forward. So it is 2 only, so because it includes 2. So let's say I want to start searching from index 3, that means position 3, which is D. So I'm telling Python to go and start searching O starting from D. This is what this means. And obviously this is 6, which is this O. So dot find is again useful because we can go and find elements. There is another one that's known as dot count. Let's see, dot count is going to tell me the count of a particular element. For example, let's count O and see how many O's are there in the string. Obviously there are 3. One more very useful method is a dot strip method, and what dot strip does is that it removes certain elements from either side. Sometimes, like by default, if you're not specifying any argument in there and you have like, let me go here, spaces on either side, dot strip is going to remove those spaces, right? Because if I was printing B like directly, it would have like spaces on the left side, and the right side obviously we cannot figure out. But in addition to this, removing spacing, it can also remove other things like based on if we have like something on either side. For example, let's say I have this thing and I just go ahead and say, just go ahead and remove this A, right? And so it's going to remove it, and it's going to print a good morning as it is, because it just like strips off A's. But one thing to remember is that if there are these characters that I'm trying to strip, and they are there like within the string, they are going to stay. So dot strip is going to strip on either side of the string. So these are some important string methods that we'll be using, and these are really helpful in string manipulation. And that's it in this video. See you in the next one.